Hello, Klasse. Today we're going to review the Konjunktiv II, which is in Chapter 1, Unit 1b, and is on packet pages 53 to 54. So go ahead and open to those pages now so you have something to follow along with, and you can look at the notes you took back then. So the Konjunktiv II is called the subjunctive in English, and we use it to talk about hypothetical or unreal conditions, to express our wishes and make polite requests. For example, from our Fotoroman, Melina asked Dr. Klumpenhoever, könnte es auch schlimmer sein? So instead of using the present tense form of können, which is kann, instead of saying kann es auch schlimmer sein, she's saying könnte. Instead of saying can it be worse, she's saying could it be worse. So being hypothetical. We also have Zabita saying wäre hier, he would be here. Wenn keinen Unterricht hätte, if he had, hypothetically, no class. To form the subjunctive form of weak verbs, these are the verbs that follow the pattern and follow the rules in all the tenses. The nice thing is that the Präteritum form is the same as the Konjunktiv II form. They're identical. So in your notes, you have verbs like spielen, hören, tanzen, machen, und führen on page 53. The Präteritum row, spielte, hörte, tanzte, machte, führte, they are identical to the Konjunktiv II form. Spielte, hörte, tanzte, machte, führte. The confusing part is that since they're identical, we frequently need some context clues when we're using them to tell whether the person's using the past tense or using the subjunctive tense. For example, if I said, ich spielte Fußball, am I saying I played soccer or I would play soccer? We need more context clues, and that's why this can sometimes be a little bit confusing. But at the very least, it's not something new to learn of how to change this verb. It's identical to the Präteritum form. Where it gets a little bit more difficult is if you're dealing with strong verbs. These are the verbs that don't follow the rules. So whenever you have a strong verb, you need to look at its Präteritum form. So looking at, on this page here, bleiben is, for example, ich blieb, the IE swaps. Well, it's the same in the Konjunktiv II. It stays flip-flopped, ich blieb, but you have to add the conjugation endings. So if it was ich, you have to add an E, ich bliebe, I would stay. If it was du, you have to add an ST, du bliebest, you would stay. So the nice thing here is there is a slight difference between the Präteritum and the Konjunktiv II, so it's easier to tell whether you're saying something in the past tense or if you're saying something hypothetically. So if I said ich blieb zu Hause, I stayed at home, versus ich bliebe zu Hause, I would stay at home, you can tell the difference when I say blieb or bliebe, stayed or would stay. One of the other rules you have to watch out for changing strong verbs to be in the Konjunktiv II is if the vowel in the stem of the Präteritum form can take an umlaut, then you have to add an umlaut. For example, geben, to give, the Präteritum is gab, and an A can take an umlaut. So you're going to add an umlaut as well as conjugation endings to make it Konjunktiv II. So if I gave you a gift, ich gab dir ein Geschenk. But if I would give you a gift, ich gebe dir ein Geschenk. Du gebest mir ein Geschenk. You would give me a present. Just like the Präteritum form for Konjunktiv II, the ich and RZS form both end in an E. The do form, just like present tense, adds that ST, but we also have an EST. EN for wir, ET for ear, and EN for the Z plural and formal. So our endings, we've got E, EST, E, EN, ET, and EN. Looking at the notes you took on this page, we had some examples with the verbs sein, gehen, geben, and wissen. So the Präteritum of sein is war. A can take an umlaut, so the subjunctive form, the A will have an umlaut, and you have the conjugation endings. So wäre, wärest, wären, depending on what the subject is. It's nice to be able to tell the difference between the Präteritum and the Konjunktiv II, which is the benefit of these irregular verbs. You can tell whether you're saying I was or I would be or were. Gehen becomes ging. I cannot take an umlaut, so you don't have to add an umlaut here, but you do need to add those conjugation endings. Ginge, gingest, wir gingen. Geben becomes gab. A can get an umlaut, so it becomes geb. And you need to add the endings, so gebe, gebest, gebet, so would give. And wissen, to know, Präteritum is wusste, so the U can take an umlaut, so the Konjunktiv II becomes wüsste. Ich wüsste, I would know. If you flip your note page over to packet page 54, there's lots of bullet points of different types of sentences and ways that you can use the subjunctive. And below it, we made some sentences in class. I have some example sentences for you here. So pause the video now and read over those. All of the modal verbs also have a subjunctive form. So we had this chart on package page 55. So your modal verbs, the ones that have an umlaut in the present tense, mögen, dürfen, müssen, and können, in the Präteritum form, they lose their umlauts. Becomes mochte, durfte, musste, konnte. To make them hypothetical, they keep kind of that same looking form as the Präteritum, but just like those irregular verbs on the previous slide here, you have to give the vowels an umlaut if they can have one. So mochte becomes möchte, so liked to would like. Durfte becomes dürfte, so to be allowed to be would be allowed. Musste, had to hypothetically müsste, had to. Konnte, was able to versus könnte, would be able to. We also have two other modal verbs that do not have modals to start with, wollen and sollen. These get treated like regular verbs, where the Präteritum and the subjunctive, the Konjunktiv II, are identical. So wollte and wollte. This is where you need those context clues. Are you saying wanted or would want? Sollen is sollte or sollte. They're identical. So should or hypothetically should. You can fill in this chart on page 55 if you didn't have it before. Now we're going to take a look at your verb slides, and I'm going to focus on some from Unit 1B because that was when we went over this concept. So find your verb slides and go to the ones from Unit 1B. They're in green, a light green color. So bring those up on your screen and follow along. So on your verb slides, it's important to pay attention whether the verb you're given is in blue or in red. So for example, sich verletzen right here is in blue. Throughout all of the Google slides, the regular verbs are in blue and the irregular verbs are in red. So the nice thing with the regular verbs is that the Konjunktiv II form is going to be identical to the Präteritum form. So the Präteritum and the Konjunktiv II will be identical. So remember though, you have two forms of the Konjunktiv II. One where you're taking the verb and putting it as the infinitive at the end and using the verb würde. So würde verletzen, would injure. The other form of the Konjunktiv II changes the verb itself to be in the subjunctive form. So because this is in blue, it's a regular verb, so the Präteritum and the Konjunktiv II will be the same. So for your Präteritum sentence, you should have Ich verletzte mir das Bein. I injured my leg. For the Konjunktiv II, the second one, you should also have Ich verletzte mir das Bein. But in this case, it changes meaning to I would hurt or injure my leg. Other verbs are marked in red, like treiben, Sporttreiben, which means to exercise. So you have the present tense sentence, wir treiben Sport in der Schule. We exercise at school. Your one form of Konjunktiv II uses würde and the infinitive form of treiben at the end. I would exercise. Ich würde Sport in der Schule treiben. But the other form takes treiben and turns it into the Konjunktiv II form of treiben. So I went to Verbix, which I posted my results right here. I looked up treiben, and the past Präteritum form of treiben is trieb. So your Präteritum form here, using the wir, would be wir trieben Sport in der Schule. We exercised at school. Your Konjunktiv II form is going to take trieb and add the conjugation endings. So ich triebe, du triebest, triebe, wir trieben Sport in der Schule. We would exercise at school. Here's another example where the verb is in red, so it's irregular. So the Präteritum line will not be identical to the Konjunktiv II. We have the two forms changing gehen to würde gehen. So the mother would go to the doctor, or changing the verb itself, gehen, from the present tense, geht, to the Präteritum, which is ging, and then adding the conjugation ending. In this case, it's an I. Die Mutter ginge zum Arzt. The mother would go to the doctor. So your Präteritum line would just say, Die Mutter ging zum Arzt. So went to the doctor versus ginge, would go to the doctor. One of your other slides from this unit is Fieber haben, to have a fever. So you do have to remember the rule that you cannot combine würde with haben. That's a big no-no. So you can actually delete one of the Konjunktiv II lines on this slide. The subjunctive form of haben is hätte. He would have a fever. The Präteritum just doesn't have umlauts. Hatte Fieber. He had a fever. And the last example I'll do here today is husten, to cough. So the present tense sentence you had, die Kinder husten sehr viel. The kids are coughing a lot. You do have the one subjunctive line where you change husten to würden husten. So the kids would cough a lot. And you also have the option of changing husten to its subjunctive form. So that's your second Konjunktiv II line. And remember, because it's in blue here, the Präteritum and the Konjunktiv II lines are going to be identical. So copy-paste might be your friend here. Die Kinder husteten sehr viel. For the Präteritum, that would mean the kids coughed a lot. But for the subjunctive, the kids would cough a lot. Because these two are identical, remember that's why using würden and husten is a very popular way to use the subjunctive, because it's clear that you are being hypothetical. I hope this was helpful to go over it again. Good luck und viel Glück!